and watch them go through the play. There'll be some cookies afterwards. So that'll get everybody out. Cookies. I'll bring everybody out. Well, the kids are still up here. I want to take a moment to recognize Candy and Carrie. Candy and Carrie have been working in junior church for 10 years, Sunday school and junior church. So they get here in the morning, and they disappear into the caves in the back, and they don't show up again until lunchtime. So they've been doing it both Sunday school and church for all these years. Came to me a couple months ago and said, we need a break. We can't do this every Sunday like this anymore. So they're going to be stepping down from doing this on a full-time basis. They gave me several months so we could work on it. I'll share with what we're going to do here in just a minute. But Candy, if you would just come up here just for a minute. Just a little gift we wanted to give to you, Carrie, and just a little Christmas decoration. Yes. And one thing I really appreciate is I never have to worry if someone's going to be here to do junior church. And they're doing, it's kindergarten and up, that age. And other people handling the younger ones. But I never have to worry if someone's going to be back there in junior church. They're always there to take care of it. I appreciate that. So you wonder what's going to be going on next. Some of you parents will be wondering, and we'll talk to some of you about what's going to go on next. As far as Sunday school goes, my wife will be taking over the kindergarten to 4th grade Sunday school class. I think I have those numbers right. And then we're going to keep doing at least the next promotion with the next class. The 5th, 8th grade will be with the Holtzes, just like we're doing it now, at least until next promotion next fall. And we'll evaluate then to see where the classes are. But in junior church, so what we're going to do is we're going to start, we have kids in the junior church age, kindergarten to 3rd grade. Starting in the next fall, it'll only be the 3rd grade, but until next fall, we'll continue having kindergarten and 4th grade in the junior church. They're going to meet in here for the music, because I want our kids to be able to hear the music and be able to learn some of this, at least for a while. We'll do this. The younger ones still go back where they are, okay? To give the parents a little bit of a reprieve there. But we're going to start with the music, and before the sermon, we'll let the kindergarten to 3rd grade go back in there. And we come up with a name for it, and I want to share this with you. We're going to call it Blast. Building lives around solid truth. Blast Kids Ministry, okay? So all our kids will go back and they'll have a blast every Sunday morning, like they have been. We'll just put the name on it, okay? We have several people who will be rotating around to do that. So that's what's going on with our junior church program. So see Candy carry around, tell them thank you for what they've done. All these by the way, January, first Sunday in January with our whole new kids program we'll start off. Appreciate faithful people. People are just doing their job all the time. I appreciate that so much. I can't leave any here for us. All right. So don't forget to come out tonight, 6 o'clock. And we'll have our kids back in the gym, okay? So you might want to just enter back in through the gym under the canopy back there. All right. Let's have a word of prayer this morning. All right, Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today. We thank you for the kids you've given to us in this church. And we want to help the parents to raise them the best that we possibly can. As parents, it's our responsibility. But as a church, we want to come alongside and try to be a blessing and do what we can to help teach the Bible to the kids, help them to build their lives on solid truth. We thank you for Candy and Carrie and people that have helped them back there all these years, and we ask for the ones that are going to pick up the mantle and carry this ministry on starting in next year. We ask that you would bless them and watch over them. And thank you for the kids we have. And this morning, as we turn to this passage here and learn how we can be attracted to God, help us to be able to understand, to be able to learn and have our faith solidified even more. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, going to the book of John again this morning. We were in John last week. And by the way, I did that when the kids were in there. I didn't tell Candy Crab to do it. I'm afraid they wouldn't show up, get any public recognition. So I just appreciate what they've done, and they want to be in the services more. They don't get a chance to be in the services. So that's what we're doing there. So last week we were in John chapter 6. And we're following Jesus as he's going around and feeding people. They just love it, you know. And remember, we looked at what Jesus did, and he fed them, and then he crossed the sea, and people came and found him only because they wanted more food. Okay? They were all Baptists, you know, everybody. They're found because they want more food, right? And so, Jesus, when you give us food, just give us more bread. And so Jesus turned to this word play, or this picture, and he said, look, I want you guys to understand that you're searching for this bread from, earth. You're searching for food. Like, I am the bread of life. You have to understand that not a physical bread that you actually eat, but I'm the bread of life, and what he means by that is if you come to me, you'll have everything you need for eternity, not just until the next meal. So he starts talking about himself as a bread of life, and these people that are listening to him are really kind of confused about this, because the only kind of bread they're thinking about is something that you put bologna in between. Right? Or something like that. What do you mean bread of what? What are you talking about? So we pick this up in John chapter 6, and verse 41. The Jews complained about him because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. It's like, what are you talking about? The bread that came down from heaven. They thought he was crazy. Look at verse 42. And they said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he says, I have come down from heaven? I mean, it's like someone that you've grown up with, all through elementary, and you grow up to them, and they start talking about having come down from heaven. You're going to look at them like they were crazy. And you would be right. Because there's only one Jesus, right? But they didn't understand that this is Jesus. They didn't understand he was the Messiah. Although they should have understood, because he was doing all these great works, all these miracles, and he was trying to convince them of who he was through these miracles. But they didn't buy it. Okay, and so this guy's crazy, because we've known him since he was a kid. We know Mary and Joseph's parents. Here he's talking about coming down from heaven. I mean, that's Messiah talk. Who does he think he is, telling us that he came down from heaven? And so Jesus, he knew what they were saying. Apparently they were just kind of murmuring this among themselves. In verse 43, Jesus answered and said to them, do not murmur among yourselves. Cut it out, guys. Stop for a little griping. Then he says something very interesting in verse 44. Someone misunderstood also. He says, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. So we have this issue of God drawing people. What does that mean? And that's what I want to look at today. What does it mean when it says you can't come to God unless he draws you? What does that mean? But before we get into that, I want to try to just make an easy illustration here to help us understand. You remember back to those days when you were in high school. Can anyone remember that far back? Some of you in high school now, some of you maybe not there yet. Some of you, that was so long ago. We don't have any of those people. Try to include everybody. Remember back in high school or elementary or whatever? Probably more high school. And you have this guy who's really interested in, and you finally have this date set up. So you're going to go out on this date. What do you do to prepare yourself for this date? Number one, you take a shower. What? Eyeball. Okay. You take a shower. You put on cologne or perfume. I guess people still do that. And you read up on the etiquette book. You're supposed to open the door for her. You're supposed to walk on the roadside of the sidewalks. They don't even know that anymore. A lot of people don't know that anymore. You're supposed to act all these, the man you're supposed to be, I'm talking to men here, okay? You're supposed to be the one helping out. You clean your car before picking her up. You vacuum it out, try to clean it up a little bit. You treat her respectfully, and you plan when we go to eat at the restaurant, we're going to treat the waitress or waiter with respect. And I'm going to buy dinner. Why are you doing all this? You're doing all this because you want to attract her to you. And vice versa. The girl, she does her hair all up right, and she puts on this. It's not that I'm saying it's all a show or anything, but sometimes it can be a show. Because you're trying to impact the other person. You want the other person to look at you and say, now, that's someone that I'd like to spend my life with. Or at least go on another date with or something. Okay, you get the idea here. You're trying to really impress that person with who you are, being such an incredible person that you are. So you're trying to impress them, trying to draw them to you. And I think in a sense that's what God is saying here. That's what Jesus is saying here. God will draw people to himself. What that means is he wants people to understand who he actually is. He wants people to understand how incredibly awesome he is, and how powerful he is, and how loving and kind that he is. He's trying to put that out there so you come to him. Like the girl and the guy going on a date, the main goal of the guy is not to just be the friend, you know what I mean? I like you, but only as a friend. He wants to move past that, okay? So he's trying to impress this girl, and she's trying to impress him. Well, that's what God is doing to people. He says, no one can come to me unless I draw you. If I didn't tell you anything about myself, you'd never come to me. But I'm trying to draw you to myself. But our question is, how does he do this? How does God try to draw people to himself? Well, I think we have a lot of things here that we need to talk about to help us understand what is it that God shows us about himself that we should be so fascinated by. Because if you really understand who God is, you will be utterly fascinated. And that will draw you to him. So we're just going to list out several things here, ways that God draws people to himself. And so first of all, God draws through his creation. God draws through his creation. Have you ever, first of all, do we have any people that really love science? Scientists here? Got a few smart people in here. Okay? I'm captivated by science. I'm not smart enough to get it all. But I love the study. And my study of science-related things are really kind of an outset of theology, because apologetics and stuff, a lot of it deals with science. And when you start looking at the design that we have in our universe, and it's incredible. And you look at the design that we have, and you say, how could all of this just shown up by accident? Now, there's answers people give it, multiverses and stuff, all that. It just look, I don't say really, that doesn't sound right, but it's crazy to me. I don't understand how it could be. How can you reject the fact that there is a God who came up with it all and say it all happened by chance? God gives us this beautiful creation, so intricately designed, so obviously designed, and so much, if something was shifted just a little bit, there's no way that we could exist. And tell me that nobody put this together. God draws us through his creation. Have you ever looked at the sunrise or the sunset and said, wow, this is incredible? We're talking about God's painting in the sky. If you go up sometime to Lake Michigan, if you go to Lake Michigan, you got to be on the east side of Lake Michigan. And you got to be in Michigan, God's country, looking across toward Wisconsin. Okay? And because that's the direction of the sunset. Who cares about the sunrise? That's way too early. It's the sunset we're all interested in, right? And you sit there on the beach and just look at nothing but the beautiful sunset. And when it's somewhat cloudy, it's just so beautiful out there. How could that just be a product of chance? Somebody designed it where light works the way that it does. And where Earth can be just exactly how it is. And our universe on the cosmic scale is just so incredible. And even on the tiniest scale, if you ever get involved in any kind of quantum physics, and so tiny that we can't even understand. And they can't figure out how tiny things are in this universe that make up this vast expanse that we have. And you say, somebody put all of that together? I mean, I study it and I read it and my mind just gets boggled. It's so hard even to grasp it. Can you imagine coming up with it out of nothing? And that's the God that we have. He's the God who says, let me just say, well, let there be, and there it be. And we spend all these years trying to figure out how it even works, and we can't figure it out yet. And all God did was let it be. Can you imagine the brilliancy of a being like that? Amen. And not just the fact, first of all, he's infinite, no beginning and no end, but then he just said, okay, let's do this. And there it was. Amen. And we try to come along sometimes and say, well, it's just a product of chance, which I think probably takes more faith than believing there's a God. If you really think about it some. But we look at creation, we say, wow, how big our God is, because he can create something like this. And if he can create it, he sits outside of it. How can you be outside the universe? I don't know. That's one for people a whole lot smarter than me. But if you create time and space, you must be outside of it. And God gives us creation. We can look around and we develop telescopes, we develop microscopes, we develop machinery that can find things. They're trying to find dark matter. They think it exists, don't even know what it is and where it is, but they're trying to find it. We have all this machinery. It's almost like God is saying, that'll be interesting to figure that out. He knows. How do you have a mind as brilliant as God? And the very fact that he gives us a mind, do you ever think about that? You know, your mind is not physical. Your mind is something that's outside of your body. I mean, they try to figure out the mind-body problem. How does your mind affect what your physical body does? You can't open your mind and see your thoughts. They are outside the physical realm. How could someone design that? You can't come up with a robot that can think. You can program a robot, but it can't think on its own like us. Amen. And God designed this universe and gives us the tools and the ability to try to understand it the best we can. And what he's doing is saying, look, I'm showing through my universe some things about me. And as you understand some things about me, it draws you to me. Amen. But what do we do with that knowledge? Romans 1 is a great illustration. If you want to look at Romans 1 for just a minute with me. This is what happens. Romans chapter 1, verse 18. Paul is writing from Romans about this very subject. He says this, Romans 1:18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. He says God is upset with people. Why is God upset with people? Because they can look around and they can see the truth of a God who exists, and they suppress that truth. Because to look around at our universe, it's obvious that somebody put this together. It doesn't necessarily have to be the God we know at this point, though it is, but just the point somebody with a mind, with a brilliant mind, is in charge. It's obvious from just looking at creation, yet we suppress the truth. It goes on to say, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. How did God show truths about himself to us? Through creation. Well, the Bible too, but that's another point, right? Through creation. We look around and we say, wow, somebody put this all together. And that somebody is much larger and smarter than me. Continue on in verse 20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. What he means here is that we can look around as people, even if we had no Bible, nobody teaching us anything, we just showed up on the scene, and we were born in a jungle, and nobody would tell us. We look around, we see everything, and the design of it all, and we know in our hearts that somebody is in charge. Amen. That's why through civilizations, most civilizations, there's something out there, something that they worship as God, whether they call him God or not, some spirit, some force, some power, because we just know something is behind all this. Something or someone has got to be behind all of it. But when we start thinking about a God to whom we are accountable, all of a sudden I don't like that so much. Because I don't want to answer to someone. He goes on in verse 21. Because although they knew God, these are people who looked and could see that there is some kind of a God and rejected him. Although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. This is what Paul was saying here in Romans 1. He's saying, if you sin, you have no excuse. Now, creation, looking at creation, cannot save you. You cannot just look at creation and understand, oh, there must be God and you can be saved that way. The only way you can be saved is through faith in Jesus. You have to hear about Jesus. But creation can condemn you. Because you look around and you say, I know there's somebody out there or something out there who's in charge of this whole thing. That's innate. We just know it, whatever you call it. And you also know along with it, there are some things that are right and wrong. Nobody has to tell you that some things are right and wrong. Amen. You just know some things. If you've grown up on an island out there somewhere, you didn't have a Bible, you still know some things are right and wrong. When you do anything you know is wrong, you are willfully rejecting whoever this is that's in charge of everything. And you're condemning yourself. It's quite a thought to think of, but the point here is, God gives us this beautiful creation. And he sets it out there for us to look at, for us to enjoy. And we should look at that, and that should draw us to God. Every person can experience creation in some way and say, wow, this is incredible. It shows us his incredible power. And his love that he would make something like this and allow us to live here in this. And we're still trying to figure out, well, what it's like. So when God says, when Jesus says, you can only come to God if God draws you, he's given you creation. He's drawing you through creation. Just look around you and say, wow, who designed all this? It's something else. And that draws you to God. But there's another way that God draws us. By the way, that we call that general revelation, if you're into those kind of terms. General, just anybody can see it, right? Then we have what we call specific or special revelation. And that's just the big theological word. We call it the Bible. Okay? We call it the Bible, His Word. Okay? God draws through His Word. So we could look at creation. If we knew nothing about anything, we could look at creation and we say, who did all this? And why did He do that? Again, just looking at creation cannot save you. You don't know anything about Jesus. You have to know about Jesus in order to be saved. When you look at creation and you still do things you know are wrong, you solidify your own condemnation. Okay? And that's what everybody does. Every single person, except Jesus, does that. Does that. Will do that. But God gives us special revelation where He says, you know that there's a God through creation. Let me explain to you who I am. Let me explain to you about Jesus. So he draws through His Word. I don't know if people still do love notes. I mean, young people, they still do love notes because you got Facebook Messenger and Twitter and all those others. I don't know what all, a million things out there now. So I don't know if anybody sits down and writes love notes anymore. Okay, but that's something they used to do back in the dark ages. And yes, kids, they did have pens and pencils when we were young. For some of these people, it might have been chalk and slate. I don't know, but that's you can talk to them about that. But the people in the church next door, I'm not talking about you. But we used to write a love note. Hey, here's how awesome I am. Do you like me? Check yes or no. Those kind of things. God gave us a love note, but it's not one of those mushy ones. God's love note is what we call the Bible. And it's put out there, and what God is saying is, let me tell you about who I am. Sometimes when we look at the Bible, we think of the Bible as just, how can I get to heaven? Let me read the Bible and see what I can get to help me. That's not the purpose of the Bible. The Bible is not to help us. The Bible is to show us who God is. It's all about Him. And when we read His Word that He's given to us, put together in the Bible, we are drawn to God because we understand more about who He is. Romans 10:17. I put on your outline Romans 10:13-17. I only have verse 17 written down there. Verse 17 says this, so then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. Follow the progression. You have the Word of God, you hear it, then you have faith. The more you hear the Word of God, the more your faith gets built. Because God draws us through His Word. So if you come in here today and you're not a follower of Jesus, you're kind of questioning this thing. I don't know. I don't know if this is all right. I get the point that somebody or something had to put all this together. Maybe you just believe it all happened by chance. Maybe. That's fine. I'm glad to hear that. I like some skeptics to come in. It makes it more interesting to preach, right? But you come in and what about this? Let me just give you a challenge. Just read the Bible. Say, well, I don't believe the Bible. Okay, that's fine. But just read it anyway. Read it, but read the whole thing. Read it several times. And see if, as you read the Bible, some light doesn't start to glimmer. You start to understand a little more who God is. You're going to be open-minded and be willing to take the challenge. Just read it because that's one way God draws people to Himself. He gives us His Word. He gives us His message. You read it, and after a while you start to say, this actually makes some sense. Amen. You know why? Amen. Because we have this big question. Everybody has this question in their life, and the question is, why? Why? Why anything? Why are we here? Did you ever ask that question? Why is anything here? Why do we have sunsets and sunrises? Why is this earth here? Why is the earth so perfectly situated in the right distance from the sun where we can actually live? Why does it rotate in a certain way? Why does gravity hold us to the ground? Why do we have a mind where we can think? What is the reason for all of this, right? When you read the Bible, all of a sudden you find answers. Answers are that there is a God who made this earth, and He gave it all to us, and gave us our minds for one purpose, so we can return glory to Him. Now, all of a sudden, everything has a purpose. It has a reason. Can you imagine living as if there were no purpose and no reason? You're just a product of chance. You just happen to be here. When you die, that's it. Can you see why people lose all hope? There's no reason. You're not here for a reason. You're nothing. We have this big thing everyone's talking about. your identity and, building people up and making them feel good about themselves. You don't want to offend anybody. You got all that. Well, I understand all that if you have an evolutionistic mindset because if there is no God, all of us are worthless. You understand how that goes? Amen. We are absolutely worthless because it's just some stuff. Who knows how that got here? But it got here, and it blew up, and over millions and billions of years, it formed in us where we are today. And one day it'll all go into some kind of heat death, and it'll all be gone. And so we have no purpose. Now, isn't that just exciting? Doesn't that just give you reason to go on out here and go back to work tomorrow? Well, no, there is no hope. There is no purpose in that. But if you understand that there is a God, all of a sudden everything has purpose. And all of a sudden you go from being nothing to so extremely important that the God who created this universe would come into the universe as a man and die for you. Now all of a sudden you have more worth than you can imagine. You get that from reading the Bible. You start to understand, oh, now I see why it's all here. If there's no God, there is no answer to the why. It just happened. If there is a God, it all begins to make sense. And you get that from His Word. As you read it, you read His Word, you read the message He gave to us, you start to say, wow, I get it. I want to know more about that God. That's God drawing you to Himself. You see it in creation. You see it in His Word. There's another way that God draws people, and that is through His messengers. Some of that obviously comes through the Bible, but through His messengers. Back to our illustration of being in high school, you had this girl that you had your eye on, and you were a little bit shy. What do? You go to one of that girl's friends, and she brings a message to this girl about how awesome you are. Awesome, that was the word we used back in the day. I don't know what to use now. So she's going to be the messenger, right? God has done the same thing. To draw us to Himself, to show us who He is, He sent people to this earth to tell us about Himself. In the Old Testament, we know them as prophets. Hebrews chapter 1. I put this on your outline for you so you can see it. It says, God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in time past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by His Son. Talking about what we call the Old Testament, and they had the prophets. God would come and He would give the prophets a message, mainly to His people Israel, because they're the ones He specifically chose out to be an example to the rest of the world. So He would send these prophets to Israel and tell them, hey, you be my examples, you be my message bearers to my people down there. And they came and they bring messages of God's love. Hey, God loves you. God chose you as Israel out of all people. And later on we see how He allows all of us, even Gentiles, to come into His plan, which was His plan from the beginning. And so it shows about His love, and the prophets came along and showed about His power. How would we know about creation if we didn't have Genesis, the first few chapters of Genesis? Moses writes this down, the prophet of God. And so we can learn about how, generally anyway, how this world and the whole universe got here. Through God's messengers, His prophets, He describes His plan through all the ages and gives us the answer to the why and how He's interested in man. Through His messengers, He shows His justice and His mercy. As we listen to His messengers, the prophets that He sent in old times, we learn more about God. And it didn't end with them. Jesus came and specifically called out 12 disciples that we call apostles. And He taught them, and they taught others. And even today, God sends people, and that people is all of us, who are supposed to go out and share with other people about who He is. So we are supposed to be going out and being ambassadors and light to the people that are around us. And that is one way that God's drawing people to Himself. We should be a lighthouse. We can use that term a lot. It gets to be so trite, right? And some churches even will call themselves lighthouse, which I think is a great name, but do we act like that? When we go out there all week and we go to work, we go to restaurants, and we go do whatever, we play, we go shopping, whatever you do, is our action drawing people to God? That's what it's supposed to be. They're supposed to look at us and say, wow, something is weird about those people down at Eastlake because they actually are nice. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, when everybody's mean, this is the season to be jolly, right? Until you cut in front of me in line, get the last thing on the shelf that I wanted, cut me off at the traffic light, then we're not so jolly. Those people buddies, like they're kind and they're loving. There's something about them when I'm in trouble, that they're there to support me. Amazing. See, and people eventually, they're like, tell me about what's going on, what's wrong with you, you know? Are you like one of those religious people? See, the way that we live as messengers of God should be drawing people to God. Where they say, there's something so different about you, whatever it is, I want that. God draws through his messengers. Of course, we come his ultimate messenger, which is his son, okay? That's Jesus. God draws through his son, very specifically. Look again there at Hebrews 1, it's there in the middle of your outline. God, by various times and in various ways, spoke in time past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. So he spoke in the Old Testament directly to the prophets. He doesn't speak directly to us in that sense anymore, because he spoke to us by his Son. He spoke to us by Jesus. Now, how are we drawn to God the Father through Jesus? I mean, when was the last time you sat down and had coffee with Jesus? Anybody sit down and have coffee with Jesus? We need to talk. Okay, you're not going to sit down and have coffee with Jesus like him physically sitting there, okay? But we read about him in the Bible. We understand things about him. There's really specifically two ways that God draws us to himself through Jesus. And the first way is through his works. Remember, that's why Jesus came. Jesus came he came to be the sacrificial atonement for us. But what he did as he came is he worked all these miracles. He fed the 5,000 that we talked about last time. He raised people from the dead. He healed people who were sick. He did all these incredible things. Why did he do all that? Not just because he had the power and say, this is fun, let's heal people, well, this is great. He did it to prove who he was. He did it so people could understand this is Messiah, because you can't do these things if you're not the Messiah, the one who's sent from God. Amen. And so Jesus came as he did these works. The idea was draw people to God. Oh, that's the Messiah. Well, let me listen to your message. And he started talking about God the Father. The only way that God the Father is through me, speaking of himself. And that was how people would be drawn to God. John chapter 10, verse 25. Jesus said this, I told you, and you do not believe. The works I do in my Father's name, they bear witness to me. Because my works are bearing witness. The miracles that I do show who I am. If you can feed 5,000 people with a boy-sack lunch, you got some power. Okay? This is supposed to draw people to him and his message, and eventually draw them to God the Father. But ultimately, the best way that God draws people to himself through Jesus is, what do you think? The resurrection. It's the resurrection. I mean, if you can die and raise yourself from the dead, I'm interested in what you've got to say. Okay? Where did you get that kind of power? I mean, how do you get that kind of power where you just raise yourself from the dead? He rose himself from the dead because he promised this is what's going to happen. Hey, I'm going to die 3 days later, I'm going to come back to life. And I mean, if your friend told you that, you would think, like, I didn't hear him right. And that was what the disciples were thinking. Sure, that's not, I don't get it. Until afterwards, they're like, oh, I remember now. He said that this would happen. Well, they didn't get it coming into it. They thought he was going to set up a kingdom right there. But his resurrection, when you understand that Jesus died completely dead and he came back to life, you understand it. You say, that is something right there. Matter of fact, Jesus said this. You need to parallel this to John 6:44 that we were just reading, where he says God draws people to himself. John 12:32, Jesus says this, and I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. If he's lifted up from the earth, the very next verse says he was speaking about his death. So it's very clear what he's talking about. Jesus says, if I am lifted up on the cross and I die, I will draw all, the word peoples is in italics. That's just added to understanding. He says, if I am lifted up on the cross, I will draw all to myself. Understand how this makes John 6:44 a little more clear when Jesus says, don't come to me unless the Father draws him. Jesus went to the cross and then drew everybody. Everybody who hears it. The difference between everybody and the ones who actually believe. We'll talk about that. But Jesus says, look, if I'm lifted up from the earth, which he was, I'll draw all to myself. So I say, wait a minute. God draws people to himself through creation, through the Word, through the messengers, through Jesus. Then why isn't everyone a believer? If God does such an incredible job drawing people to himself, why doesn't everybody buy into it? How come everybody isn't a believer? Well, there's a good reason. Go back to John 6 again. Verse 44, Jesus says, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. You know that he draws everybody through all these things we talked about. And I will raise him up at the last day. Verse 45, it is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by God. He's quoting the Old Testament prophets here. The Old Testament prophets who came and said, look, I'm going to teach you some things about God. And when we read it, we see it a lot of times there in Israel, they didn't buy it. But Jesus is pulling that out. He said, look, they will all be taught by God. Therefore, this is important. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. That's key. Everyone is drawn in some way to whoever it is who put all this together. They can see it in creation. And then when they hear the word, they can be drawn to Jesus. But only the ones who are saved, to use that terminology, are the ones who not only hear, not only see it, but also learn. They accept it. Go back to verse 40. Just back up a little bit to verse 40. Jesus says this, and this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life. And I'll raise him up the last day. God is drawing everybody through creation. And our job is to go out and help with the drawing through them being a messenger and through giving the word to them. That's what missions and evangelism and all that. He draws everybody. Everybody. But only the ones who have it applied to them are the ones who not just see it, but who believe it and accept it for themselves. Let me illustrate it a little bit this way. Well, let me give you this one first. God draws, we must come. That's our part. God's part is he draws. He draws everybody. Hey, I made a creation. You can see about that. I gave you the word, right? The drawing is out there. What he's trying to do is convince us how good the invitation is. And sometimes we look at it and we say, you know what? If I buy into this, that means that I'm understanding there's a God. And if there's a God, I can't just live my life the way I want to. Now all of a sudden, it's a God who's in charge, and I'm going to have to answer to him one day. And that is why we don't want there to be God. Not we, but people. God is responsible for somebody. But God draws. Here's my illustration, just to help us understand a little about this. This time of year is Christmas time, right? We get invited to all kinds of parties. Christmas cookie things, and Sunday school parties, and church potlucks, and cookies after the church kids' Christmas play. We get invited to all these things, okay? And what happens is we get all full of eating stuff, and we show up. And we have a potluck, right? So we come back and we have a potluck back in the gym, and you walk in there that night saying, you know what? I've been very good. I'm going to go back there. And I'm not going to eat anything. I'm just going to fellowship. I'm not going to go back to that gym. I'm not going to eat anything. Right? Good plans, right? But then you walk into the gym, and the smells hit you. And there's fried chicken. Fell out of heaven. You're ready. You got a direct line to heaven. God just sends it to you for house. And there's pies, and there's cookies, and there's cakes. And all of a sudden, what do you feel? Your stomach starts popping. You gotta have some, right? And so you dig in. That's in a way what God's drawing his life. I don't want a God. I don't want a God. Then you start reading his word. You start looking at creation with an open mind. You say, wait a minute here. There's something to this. Wait a minute here. This all can't have happened by random chance. And you start being drawn to that God you previously had no interest in. Because all of a sudden, there's a God who loves you. And there's a God who will hold you accountable for your sins if you don't come to him. And there's a God who part of God, the Godhead, Jesus came, and he says, I'm going to go and I'm going to prepare a place for you. You have to start to understand it. Pretty soon you start to have this desire. We've read autobiographies of people who started to read the Bible to disprove it and end up becoming Christians. Why? Because they started looking around, they started looking at the Bible and saying, you know what? I'm pull. God draws. The question is, are you going to come? Let's bow our heads and close our eyes. The worship team will come, please. Don't be like the people there in Romans 1, where they see the truth and they just suppress it. They say, I don't want it because I don't want to be responsible. You know, if you're alive and you're a thinking person today, you look at creation, you can read your Bible, you can know that there's a God who loves you. He's drawn you. He's put it out there. Hey, look at my creation. Here's my word. Jesus came and died for you. He's done his part to draw you. Will you just accept it and believe? If you haven't, we have some questions about that. We're going to have our invitation time in just in a minute. When we're singing, if you need some help, come down and we'll talk to you. We'll try to help you out in any way that we can. There's nothing magical about this. You just decide, I trust in Jesus Christ. That's your part. He does all of this. Father, this morning I ask you to speak to hearts. Thank you for drawing people to yourself. Thank you for giving us everything that you allowed us to see. Read in the Bible, we can understand why we're here and who you are. If there's anyone today that has never come to you in faith and trust, help them to do that today. In Jesus' name.